you click the video, you want to know how good each of the emblems are in OUTREALMS PvP, so welcome. And with the basics from my first OUTREALMS video in mind, and if you haven't seen that, please go watch that first. I'm going to rank each emblem based on how useful I think they are, either in OUTREALMS defense or OUTREALMS offense. There are 3 tiers that you see here. The topmost tier for the rings that I believe are almost only good on offense. The middle tier, defense, only for rings that I believe are almost only good on defense. And then this third tier, it's called either, which are going to be for rings which can pretty much do well on either offense or defense, although they might be slightly better suited to one or the other. Rings will be placed in descending order within the tiers themselves, according to how powerful I think each ring is within that tier. So let's kick it off. We're starting with the progenitor, Marth. I would say Marth is definitely an offense ring. He's pretty decent for offense, but definitely poorer for use in defense. He doesn't grant extra move, extra range, or staying power for the defense AI to often even be able to do anything with him. The AI is kind of simple and generally just charges and it just doesn't know how to utilize Marth. It doesn't make good use of Marth on defense. So his Freddy Krueger engage attack, the Lodestar Rush, that on offense can especially net you some easy KOs with Falchion and Rapier getting effective damage against dragons, horses, and armors. You can also upgrade Mercurius to deal effective damage to flyers and get a lot of one-hit KOs via Lodestar Rush. That way, you bypass Miracle, you bypass Holdout. So Lodestar Rush, I call it Freddy Krueger. It's really good just for nuking one unit, especially when you can get the effective damage. One of my favorite builds for Marth is utilizing a Griffin Knight Boucheron with him. Because Marth turns every fast unit basically into an even faster one. He gives you additional strength, additional speed, he gives you divine speed, break defenses. It gives you a lot of opportunity to bypass Miracle, to break Miracle, therefore, to continuously swing anywhere from 4 to 8 times, especially if you're using Brave weapons. It's great for bypassing Miracle because you force Miracle units to roll Miracle potentially 3 to 6 times simply because you're sitting there swinging repeatedly, making them attempt to proc Miracle each time. And that one time they fail will be either the time that you finally break Holdout or the time that you just kill them altogether. So yeah, Marth, definitely I would say, considering he's the first emblem here, I would say he's probably mid-tier offense. He's kind of average and definitely just bad for defense. I've tried Marth on my defense teams. He's almost never done anything. The unit that was holding him often just died without ever doing anything. And maybe I was just building my defense team wrong. I don't know. This is just one man's opinion. Next up on the list is Sigurd. Sigurd is going to be a high or even top tier defense emblem. Based on what you heard from me talking about Marth, you should hopefully see why Sigurd is much better for defense. Number one, just wearing him, you get plus 1 move. The AI is dumb. It needs a lot of movement and range and survivability in order for it to be able to do anything. So Sigurd giving you plus 1 move for free and another plus 5 or more, depending on who's engaged with him, it massively increases your unit's threat range and then damage potential in OUTREALMS. So the AI can very easily just sprint, 10 plus spaces across the map and just get the first attack in and put a little pressure on the attacking player. Override is also great because you can catch an unwary attacker player by running over 2 or more of their units that are in a line, and honestly even get some one-hit KOs if you've buffed Sigurd's engage weapons with effective damage. Tyrfing is one especially. Rider's Bane already has effective damage, so you augment the might on that, it becomes even better. And then Tyrfing, you add either flyer or armor effectiveness on that, and you can do some pretty severe damage to those units using override with that. The cherry on top of it all is that he can't be frozen thanks to Headlong Rush. Headlong Rush is honestly almost good enough to be inherited on its own for OUTREALMS, but it just doesn't quite have the usefulness that Reprisal, Lunar Brace, Holdout, or Divine Pulse have. Unfortunately, all of this kind of combines to also mean that your Sigurd holder will often speed way ahead of the rest of your army and pretty much get them killed in the phase immediately following their first attack. But if your Sigurd trades 1-for-1 with the enemy, I'd still call it a win. One more reason why I think Sigurd should be on defense rather than offense is because how he encourages you to overextend your units, so that, like, if you're attacking and using Sigurd, you're going to send your Sigurd bearer up into the enemy defense team to perhaps override or just attack one unit that you want to attempt to kill. But after that, you only have Cantor to reposition, which generally means your unit is deep in enemy territory and going to die very quickly. The problem with that, therefore, is that you're going to go down one unit. The attacking player only has 8 units on OUTREALMS offense, and they're killing 12 defense units on OUTREALMS defense. So trading 1-for-1, which is generally what I think Sigurd encourages, is not usually in the attacking player's favor. Where if Sigurd's on defense and the AI, which is usually smart enough to do this, it will just charge and try and trade 1-for-1, that's usually in the defending player's favor, which is why I like Sigurd as a defense emblem. Definitely a high tier defensive threat. Next up is Lady Celica. She's going to be a defense emblem for sure. At a very base level, I view her as Magic Sigurd. She basically just rushes straight into enemy territory, nukes one unit, and will oftentimes just die. Warp Ragnarok massively buffs the range of one of your units and allows them to drop a devastating nuke on an enemy unit. Make sure you augment her Ragnarok engage weapon. Give it extra might and give it effective damage. This very easily sets up your Celica user to get one-hit KOs with Warp Ragnarok. Unfortunately, just like with Sigurd, I would mostly consider Celica to be defense, because if you're using Celica on offense and you use Warp Ragnarok, your unit is more than likely gets to potentially kill one enemy and then gets run over by the rest of the defense team on the next turn. Again, you don't really want to throw away units when you're attacking. You generally want to kill 2 defenders for every 1 attacker unit that dies. Like, you can't trade 1-for-1. Celica and Sigurd both generally encourage trading 1-for-1, which is why I will almost always put them higher tier for defense and like mid to low offense. Next up is Micaiah. Micaiah is going to be the #1 offense emblem. There's just no doubt. The sheer fact that she buffs stabs range by 5 and adds the little, the T-shape AoE effect to them is completely obscene. Since the attacking player gets to go first in OUTREALMS battles, and there are 12 defenders to 8 attackers, it's very important to utilize Micaiah's entraps and freezes to the best of your ability on offense. You need to be freezing or entrapping anywhere from 2 to 3 units every turn. You either need to stall the enemy so you can deal with big threats, or you need to grab the big threats and pull them towards you and deal with them immediately. I mean, this is entirely why Micaiah's #1. Entrap, just having that huge range on Entrap is good. Having the massive AoE effect and huge range on Freeze is also really good, because the AI tends to clump up with the defense units. The AI defense isn't really, it's pretty simple. It doesn't seem to consider things like stabs. I can very often freeze 3 or more units with a Micaiah boosted freeze staff. It just instantly evens the odds for you. Now, you might be wondering why Micaiah is not a defense emblem. There's one really strict reason why I would only recommend her for offense, but she's really powerful for offense, of course, is the AI on defense does not use offensive stabs. I have no idea why. I've tried a couple of times to make it work, testing my own defense. I've given the AI only freeze or only entrap and no other weapons, and it does not do anything. The unit just stands there. It never does anything. So the AI does not make use of freeze or entrap or silence. I don't think they use fracture either. The only stabs that I've seen the AI use is healing stabs on defense, which it's okay, but I wouldn't use Micaiah just to buff your healing stabs on defense. That's just me personally though. If you could somehow program the defense AI to use entrap and freeze and silence and fracture, I think Micaiah would probably go into the either zone. It would be so good. Like that effect is so good to extend entrap and free, all that. To extend all those and give them AoE, it would be good for defense, but for some reason the AI is not programmed, and as far as I can tell, you can't train it or make it use those status stabs. So I can only recommend Micaiah for offense. I guess there's one minor point to potentially put her on defense, or as an alternative use for her on offense, you can try Nos tanking, where you equip Nosferatu and you have holdout while you're fighting enemies. It's a very common Soren build, which I will review later, but it executes on the premise of basically being near invincible, especially thanks to holdout, and using Nosferatu to continually heal and remain in the range of holdout so that you can't be killed except by engage attacks. But I would not use Micaiah for Nos tanking very often. That should be very much a side bonus to the staff spam that I highly encourage with Micaiah. Next up is Roy. Lord Roy, the boy. I'm gonna put him in the either column. Probably like mid-tier, maybe almost high tier. I think the primary thing that makes Roy a very valuable ring is that he gives the wearer holdout for free, so that you don't need to inherit holdout for your unit as one of their 2 skill slots. But additionally, it gives your unit an additional 5 levels while engaged with Roy, and this does go over the standard level and stat caps. Breaking the level and stat caps is kind of hard to do for the most part in OUTREALMS. So getting that extra speed, that extra defense, extra HP, strength, all of that stuff is actually really useful, and I think it's potentially more useful here than even in the regular campaign, like the story game. His engaged weapons, they're decent enough. I think Binding Blade is the true standout as just like a good blanket range 1 to 2 weapon. You get the +5 defense and res while wielding it on top of whatever augments you put on it. So let's say if you add +3 defense, +3 res on it via augments, you're getting +8 on top of whatever level up bonuses you get from being engaged with Roy from the +5 levels. Binding Blades is ultra annoying to deal with when Roy is on defense, and it's just really good while you're using Roy on your offense. The weakest part of Roy's kit, honestly, probably is his engage attack, funny enough. It unfortunately isn't going to net probably any one-hit KOs at all. It does kind of synergize well with massed Micaiah entraps. Like if you can get a line of 3 units and entrap them, and they're still in a line of 3, you can whack them all with is it Blazing Lion? You can whack them all with Roy's engage attack to deal. It's pretty mediocre damage. I feel like it only really one-hit KOs the extremely frail units, like maybe Sages. But for the most part, when you're dealing with capped Griffins, Great Knights, Generals, it's only dealing maybe a third to a half of their total HP, which is kind of funny considering how good engage attacks usually are in OUTREALMS. On defense, what I particularly love about Roy is putting him on cavalry, because he gets an engage bonus with cavalry that gives him +1 move while engaged. It's utterly terrifying to deal with a good Roy. Oftentimes I see him on Fagato, and that's one of my favorites personally. I use Roy on Fagato in my own defense. I give Fagato a longbow, and then when he has boots plus Roy's +1 move, he's got a total move of 8, and then the additional +3 range from longbow, so his total threat range is 11. That's pretty massive. Most other units can't outrange Fagato. Like, he can often get the first strike before he dies, you have holdout from wearing Roy, so you have that extra ability slot, which I really like on defense. I think defense is really thirsty for extra ability slots because the AI is just kind of dumb, and as a player, like as the attacking player, you can usually learn to not have to rely on holdout, where the AI is just kind of too dumb. Like it has to have holdout on every unit if it's going to have like some reasonable chance of winning a lot of its games against smart players. Yeah, Roy, definitely mid to high tier for either offense or defense for sure. Next up is Leif. Leif, I'm going to put him as a low tier offense ring. He's a little bit more defensive and a little bit less offensive than Marth, in my opinion. His engage attack is, I mean, it's pretty much a meme altogether, but at least in scope of like extreme late game where you can sit here and augment his engage weapons in particular, when you can augment the might and the effective damage, like you can add effective damage to the killer axe, his brave lance, his master lance, and his light brand. When you can augment the might of those weapons and add effective damage, it applies to his engage attack for each individual hit, just as it does with any other weapon in an engage attack. I would say Leif's engage attack, when you've fully augmented his weapons, especially with might, like if you're going to use Leif in OUTREALMS, please give his weapons max might. Just immediately give all 3 of his weapons max might. You must just augment them. Do yourself a favor. If you augment all of his weapons to max might, I would say his engage attack is arguably better than Roy's. He can net some one-hit KOs, and it only gets better if you add effective damage to his weapons. Like if you add effective damage to, especially the light brand, whatever you give, light brand has huge might for some reason. It has huge might. So if you can add effective damage to the light brand, oftentimes when you use your engage attack, whoever light brand is effective against, you will probably net more one-hit KOs against that class of unit. So like if you add cavalry effectiveness to light brand, when you do the quadruple hit, the light brand hit will be doing like, 40, 50, 60 damage, where the other 3 hits might be doing like 5, 10, 15, like a lot less, more than likely. But that 160 damage hit will be probably enough to set quadruple hit over the edge so that you're not missing the one-hit KO thresholds to ignore holdout. Crucial that you augment Leif's engaged weapons. It's also good just to augment his engaged weapons in general, simply because of his ability to swap weapons on enemy phase the way he does. If you make all of his engaged weapons really good by you're gonna have to cap out the bonds, get all of your bond level 10s with all of your in-game units. And then you can maximize the augments on Leif to get, most of his weapons to have 20 or more, augmentation buffs. When he's swapping in between, the killer axe and the light brand and all that, for his defensive maneuvers, it just makes your wielder a lot better. Like if you give all of Leif's weapons, +3 defense, +3 res, +3 speed. Every time your user switches weapons to each of Leif's different engaged weapons, you're maintaining those bonuses, which is really good. One small note to make for his Master Lance: there's a lot of synergy for Master Lance built within Divine Pulse Plus. Since the Master Lance has such bad hit rates, and since every unit has cap stats, you just inherit Divine Pulse Plus, and your Master Lance is actually going to have a decent hit rate of 80 or even 90%, depending on how good your unit's luck is. For me personally, I use Leif on a Griffin. I want to say it was Lapis. I think she has base 36 luck. And yeah, I've seen her on many occasions have sub 20% hit rates with Master Lance, but she'll hit 3 out of 4 or even 4 out of 4 attacks, simply because Divine Pulse is proccing on all of those. You have 0% hit rate, doesn't matter. Divine Pulse plus 30 luck means 80% of the time you're going to get a hit anyway. Altogether though, I think he's an okay offense emblem. Next up is Lucina. I primarily consider her an offense ring. I would say she's something around the level of Marth. I'm going to put her just above Marth. Her little dual strike shenanigans of where she can chain attack against any unit that's within her range. Pretty good. Like, this is one easy way to bypass Miracle. Like, when a Miracle user is at low HP or even 1 HP, that, like, you don't have to sit there and swing through 50% Miracles a bunch of times. A chain attack completely just bypasses that, takes an 80% swing, and honestly will probably get the kill. I get sick of dealing with Miracle. When a Miracle unit like dodges 3-4 attacks in a row, it's like, I just wish my chain attack would have killed her. You know, I wish I had a chain attack to kill this guy who's got 1 HP. You know, I already broke the hole out. Just die, you know? She's got a decent engage attack. It's probably about on par with Roy in that it doesn't do a ton of damage. It's more like if there's like a lightly weakened unit that has, you know, maybe ballpark half of their HP left, you can use her all for one to deal like 30 to 40 damage, depending, of course, there's a lot of factors, but in my experience, it's usually 30 to 40 damage, along with a couple extra chain attacks. And you could kill a unit who's at about half HP, so you can bypass Holdout and Miracle. It has some uses, and I will always consider engage attacks to be more of an offense thing, because a lot of defense units will have Holdout, where I think on offense, a lot less people use Holdout on their offense attacking team. And also, Bonded Shield. So speaking of Miracle, I'm jumping backwards a little bit. Bonded Shield also helps you deal with Miracle units, because it can, since Miracle units don't have engage attacks, you can spam Bonded Shield against them and get the protection that you need from their constant nuisance attacks. The only real problem with that is that your Lucina user, like Lucina, everyone knows Lucina for the avoid tanking that she gives you, like when you're surrounded by three or four units, you know, using Bonded Shield on 3 or 4 different units, that your Lucina user will probably have 150, 200 avoid. The only problem with that in Outrealms is that anyone worth their salt in Outrealms is going to have Divine Pulse on at least half of their units, if not more. So your Lucina user could potentially be attacked by Divine Pulse users who don't really care that you have 200 avoid and they have a 0% hit rate. So there's a little give and take. I have used Bonded Shield a few times against Miracle units, like when I've killed all of the enemy Emblem rings and there's like 3, 4, 5 Miracle units left. I have used it to pretty decent effect. It's worth using Bonded Shield when there's no engaged threats around. You can't use Bonded Shield when there's engaged attacks, because you're balling yourself up, so you're going to get destroyed by Override, by Blazing Lion, Corrin, like other AoE engaged attacks. Camilla is another one I forgot. So please don't be dumb. Don't ball up and try Bonded Shield when there are engaged users nearby who can kill you with an engaged attack. Anyway, altogether, I would say Lucina is, yeah, probably about a mid-tier. Like, even though she's below Micaiah, the gap between Lucina and Micaiah, in my opinion, is still pretty large. Next up is Lyn. Oh man, she's gonna be, yeah, probably one of the best emblems for either offense or defense. Maybe not quite as good as Micaiah on offense, but still pretty close. So why is Lyn excellent? Almost all the same reasons that she's excellent in the main game, which sometimes it doesn't seem true for the emblems in Outrealms, but for Lyn, I think it mostly holds. Like, she gives you the speed bonuses. That speed is huge. Like, you want to be able to double, take more swings, break Miracle, break Holdout. Her engage attack, the Astral Storm, it's potent on either offense or defense. The AI loves the massive range. It's very safe for the AI to just be like, alright, I'm going to shoot you from 10, 20 spaces away with Astral Storm. And of course on offense, it's good because it's not like Celica or Sigurd, where it's like you have to put your unit right next to the enemy units in order to use the engage attack. No, you can stand 10 plus spaces away and just pick somebody and they're probably going to die. So yeah, Astral Storm, one of the best engage attacks in Outrealms for sure. So her engage weapons, I don't think Killer Bow and the Manicotti, they're not really that good. I don't even know if I've seriously used those weapons in Outrealms. Mulagear, however, now this might be one of the most powerful engaged weapons, at least for Outrealms, potentially in the whole game. I mean, you get +5 speed, you can augment it for even more speed. I think it gives an additional +3 or 4. I'll probably put a picture up because I don't remember for sure. And it has effective flyer, effective dragon. It has extremely high might. This bow is just so insanely overtuned, and the fact that you get to augment it with even more stats, like the moment you engage with Lyn, you need to use Moligear for everything. You're just murdering everybody with it. Stupid overpowered. And then lastly, her what is it called? Summon decoys. The call decoys. I call it summon dummies. When you summon the dummies, the defense AI, just like in the story mode, the defense AI like gets like immediate tunnel vision and just like, there's a 1 HP unit. Oh my gosh, I can kill something. Like every unit on the map like instantly is trying to kill those 1 HP units. It's absolutely hilarious how dumb the AI is and how abusable Lyn is on your offense team when you just keep spamming the dummies and watch the AI come in and kill it, and then you kill those units on your next player phase. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that Lyn is probably one of the best, if not the best, emblem. Micaiah's the best offense emblem in my opinion, like bar none. But Micaiah is like terrible for defense. Where like Lyn, you put her anywhere, she's doing like tons of work. She's insane. Up next is Ike. All right, this might be a shocker to some of you. I don't know. I'm making him an offense emblem. So the dumb, I don't know how to put this other than it's mostly because of the dumb AI in this game. For some reason, this is my personal experience, and again, maybe I don't know how to make my defense AI work or something, or like where to put my Ike unit. The AI is so dumb with Ike on defense that like often, like when I tried Ike in my OUTREALMS defense, he was just walking around repositioning people, like repositioning friendlies and like not contributing to fighting. I don't understand what the frick the point of Ike is on defense. He doesn't do anything. Like, way too many times when I see Ike on other people's defense, I'll like start attacking, and like, so on the first like enemy turn, on the first enemy phase, their Ike user will engage. He'll be like 15 plus spaces away from me. He'll engage and then use Great Ether. Okay, so he's like 10 plus spaces out from me. He used Great Ether like he thinks I'm going to rush that spot. The AI just like does not think when it's using Great Ether, and it often just uses it on the first turn, despite being nowhere near a single enemy unit. It just ends up wasting its first turn with Great Ether doing absolutely nothing. And then on the following turns, it like walks forward and repositions one of your frontmost defenders and pops them 2 spaces backwards for no reason at all. Don't use Ike on defense. Again, my personal experience, Ike just like, he's stupid. The AI is so stupid with Ike. Now let's get to the other reasons why I put Ike in offense for actual offense use. So while you're engaged with Ike, he takes half damage, the Lagoo's friend ability. That's pretty good altogether. Like he can eat up a lot of engage attacks. Engage attacks can often one-shot KO your units. Like we're talking Marth, Leif, Lyn, maybe even Sigurd and Celica. Ike pretty much looks at all of that and just laughs. He might take 20, 30 damage from those. So if you put Ike on like some really fat unit, maybe even give him HP plus 15 or gentility, while you're engaged with Ike, your unit takes very little damage from even engage attacks, so you can soak up the defense team's engage attacks, like have them just like all start wasting it on the Ike user. And even if the Ike user dies, it's like, okay, you trade Ike and maybe 1 unit, but if you get rid of like 3, 4 engage attacks, you've relieved a lot of pressure. Like especially if Sigurd uses Override, if Celica uses Warp Ragnarok, if Lyn uses Asterstorm on your Ike user, it's like suddenly now you don't have to worry about some unit that's shooting you from 10, 15 plus spaces away and killing somebody else who might be more important. One of your more glass cannon units, where your Ike user, you could basically kit them out to be highly defensive. But on top of this, yeah, Irvin and Ragnar, both giving additional defensive stats, and again with augmenting, means that like your Ike user can be so tanky that it's honestly rare, at least in my experience, that my Ike user ever dies. Ike is just insanely tanky. I like using Ike on offense for baiting mostly, like just have him engage, send him forward, and bait all of the defense units to blow their loads on the Ike user, and he probably won't even die from it. From personal experience, yeah, I like Ike. He's pretty mid to upper tier on offense. Up next is Byleth. Yep, I think this should be a clear winning emblem in most people's minds. Pretty similar, again, to the campaign. The dude has Goddess Dance. What else do you need to know, right? OUTREALMS is pretty fast-paced, so like when you only get an average of, I would say most games go about 8 to 10 turns. So when you get those extra activations, it's like you're getting, 10 to 15% more usage out of your units than you would have normally, right? Just like Roy giving Holdout, he gives the wearer, whoever's wearing the Byleth ring, gets Divine Pulse Plus for free. So that means you have a skill slot open for something else, which is awesome, especially on like a really offensive unit. You can make some really powerful glass cannons, or you can make a really good defense unit who, I don't know, whatever, is ultra tanky, and then you have Divine Pulse to make sure that your attacks get through and hit. Speaking of defense, so I would slightly encourage you to use Byleth on offense teams rather than defense teams, mostly because the AI is kind of dumb with Goddess Dance and even with Instruct. Kind of similar to Ike in this way, that like they'll just, if your Byleth user is engaged, on defense, the AI will just like walk around and use Instruct instead of like trying to walk towards the enemy and put pressure on the attacking team. The additional part is that Goddess Dance, it seemed pretty rare for me, like when I had Byleth on my defense team for a bit, he would very rarely get more than one user. It would often turn out to be like they would walk one unit forward, Byleth would walk like 3 steps forward, and then just Goddess Dance a guy who still wasn't even like contributing. So it'd be like the unit behind Byleth walks 5 spaces forward, then Byleth walks 2 spaces to catch up, Goddess dances that guy, and then that guy walks another 5 spaces forward, but still hasn't done anything, like hasn't contributed. So it's like it kind of senselessly uses Goddess Dance. However, in the defense of AI, if you put like Byleth in like, let's say the corner, like in the back corner of your defense, where maybe it'll take Byleth a couple of turns to catch up to the rest of your units, like once they've engaged with the attacking team, that's when Byleth can finally like look at the field and be like, oh, here's a couple of guys that have attacked and they're right next to the enemy, and it'll get like 2 or 3 units at once. And I have seen it do that. It's definitely done like dances where it'll hit 3 units and then those 3 units continue attacking, but I think it's much rarer than you would think it should be. Strongly consider Byleth mostly for offense, but if you want to have like a weird wild card in your defense, I think Byleth does just as good there. Next up is Corrin. I'm going to call Corrin a mostly defensive emblem. There's potential for offense, but I think she's way better in defense, mostly for one thing. Mage Cannoneers. Mage Cannoneers with Divine Pulse and Corrin on defense, super freaking annoying. So while you're engaged, yeah, the AoE effect from Dreadful Aura and with the Mage Cannoneers' huge range, attacking players who aren't careful with how they position their units will find themselves getting their entire team frozen in place while there's a whole army of 10 plus defenders charging down their throat. Other than being used with Mage Cannoneers, I don't think Corrin is super good either on offense or defense. Kind of niche as like a get out of jail free button. Like maybe you engage with Corrin, like let's say on offense, and you use like a range, 2 or even 3 attack to freeze a small group of enemies. Like it works like Micaiah's freeze in that way. So it's not completely terrible, but I still think Corrin generally works better on defense. It makes your unit tankier, like it gives the unit extra HP, and it puts additional pressure on the attacking player to kill that Corrin before they get in and attack those maybe like glass cannon units. Like if Corrin can tap any like remotely weak units and freeze them in place, that just means that the rest of the defense is going to come in and get those offense units killed on the next turn or two. I think the potential of Corrin freezing any like random like fragile offense units makes her much better on defense to just annoy attacking players, to give them one additional mechanic to deal with, since the AI doesn't use freeze staffs. Torrential Roar, now I gotta talk about her engage attack. Torrential Roar is not that good, unfortunately. And I think part of the issue is I want to say it's a Dragon Fang, but like the weapon, effectively, that Corrin wields while you use Torrential Roar, it's not upgradable. Like, you can't augment it in the ring chamber. So it often does laughable damage. Again, this kind of goes along with, like, if you don't upgrade Leif, like, Leif's quadruple hit just does, like, laughable damage if you don't augment his weapons. Corrin is basically that, but you can't even augment Dragon Fang. So it often does laughable damage, and honestly, yeah, like, if you're using Torrential Roar, it's because you need to get out of jail free button. You need to walk up and freeze 3 or more units that are like all next to each other because you're getting overwhelmed or something funny. When you're attacking generals, Great Knights, Ike users, Hector users, even like Mage Cannoneers themselves, like if you're trying to use Torrential Roar to like kill a Mage Cannoneer, like you can't do any real damage, so you can't break hold out. It's hard to bypass Miracle. Corrin is just really, it's unfortunate how bad Torrential Roar is in Outrealms, as far as the damage potential. Now, like, you still get to do the Dreadful Aura and the Draconic Hex, which are usable enough, and to keep in line with how Roy also synergizes with Micaiah's Entrap, that also applies here. Like, if you can entrap 3 units that are in a line, you could then go through and nuke them all with Torrential Roar. I shouldn't say nuke. You can noodle whip them all with Torrential Roar to lock them all in place and give them stat debuffs, and maybe make it easier to get rid of all 3 of them. Whatever the deal is, there's synergy with Micaiah, so it's not all bad. I just think Corrin is primarily good on defense. Next up is Erica. I actually like her on either offense or defense. She's definitely kind of like a mid-tier, though, on either side. Number 1, her engaged attack, pretty decent. I think it comes short on a lot of one-hit KOs, but you will still get some, which I think is worthwhile. I would say she's probably slightly better for offense just because of that. I like to forge a Silverblade. Like, if you forge Silverblade +5, or the what is it, the Georgios, the S rank, massive smash sword, those will only increase your thresholds for getting one-hit KOs with her Twin Strike. But the other good thing about her, Luna Brace, you get Luna Brace for free. I think Luna Brace is a pretty mid to high tier ability for Outrealms. Considering a lot of units have really high defense, especially your Great Knights, your Generals. Those guys are really hard to bust through with physical attackers, and Lunar Brace kind of just like looks at those big defense stats and laughs at it, and just makes you even stronger. And even one more reason for putting her on offense over defense, is that the AI seems kind of weird and willy-nilly switched between Erica and Eiriphraim. I don't really know. Man, maybe someone could comment about this if they know how. Like, what does the AI decide? Like, what does it use to decide whether it's going to use Eiriphraim or Erica? I don't know, but I feel like on my defense, it was probably, I would say more than 50-50. It was probably like 30% Erica and 70% Eiriphraim, if I had to guess. And, like, I don't really want my defense team, like, I think I have a couple of Luna Brace users on my defense. And even for my Erica wielder itself, I don't really want them switching over to freaking the Soul Brace. I'd rather have them keep the Lunar Brace so that they can deal that damage, get more kills. But yeah, altogether, Erica's kind of just mid. Like, she's usable, but not anything too special. Next up is Alear. I'm just kidding. You actually can't use Alear in Outrealms. Even if you've beaten the game. I've absolutely beaten the game. Unless I'm missing something, but I have never figured out how to use Engage Plus with Alear in Outrealms. And it's probably there to prevent spoilers for, like, people who are only halfway through the game and they decided they wanted to try Outrealms a couple times. That, like, if they come across, like, a defense AI Alear that, like, drives next to, like, a friendly unit, and then they both engage, and suddenly, like, all of the skills and stuff are spoiled. Yeah, I can see why they didn't put Alear, as an engageable unit. I kind of wish they did, though. Just like for the effective Fell Dragon and stuff like that. There's no way to get effective damage on, like, Vale or the other Nell and Raphael, like the DLC guys. I believe they're called Fell Dragons, right? Like, that's one of their, like, races. Whatever. There's nothing else to be said. You can't use Alear in Outrealms. There's no reason for me to talk about it. disclaimer here before I talk about Edelgard, I don't have the DLC, so everything I'm about to say about these is going to be either what I have seen in defense teams, you know, in my experience playing against teams who use these emblems online, or just like theoretical, what would I do if I had this unit, you know, if I had the DLC and I could do this. But so up next though is Edelgard. I'm probably going to put her kind of a low, like mid to low tier defense emblem. I think the two like main things that I see about this ring is that you get like the clawed bow. That seems pretty good. Like you get the range 2 to 3. That's caught me off guard, I think maybe once or twice. And then the other part is for Dimitri, you have I think it's called the shield gambit. When you're engaged or whatever, like when Dimitri is the guy on the ring, I think it nullifies the first ranged attack, or like he takes half damage. It does something to ranged attackers, I believe. That has actually been quite annoying for me to deal with when I'm attacking into an Edelgard. I think this is slightly more useful for defense, just on a theoretical level. Next up is Tiki. I'll probably put Tiki just above Edelgard. I don't really see Tiki making much of a difference on defense teams. Like when I am fighting defense teams who have Tiki, all I really see Tiki do is it gives another unit the extra health bar, the blessing engage attack thing that it does, and then it'll just walk slowly across the map and eventually get nuked by my army. Does make the other unit, you know, whoever gets that blessing, the blessing extra life bar, it does make that other unit mildly more annoying, because now it's like, now you gotta break holdout twice. So I kind of think she's like mid-tier-ish for defense just because of that. I think it's pretty reasonable on its own. Like you're stretching your opponent's already kind of thin 8 units, you know, like they're 8 activations in a turn, those resources. You basically stretch it even thinner when you give one of your defense units an additional HP bar. Next up is Hector. I don't think Hector's very good in OUTREALMS. I've had some really funny encounters with like Louis and Madeline's and what's the other one? The other armor knight, Jade. Like armors who are using Hector can become like basically impossible to kill with physical damage. The only problem with that is they kind of just keel over to magical damage. Other than being basically immune to physical damage, I don't really see Hector doing much. Like he doesn't contribute on defense when I'm fighting, you know, an enemy Hector on a defense team. I've never really felt super threatened. I'm not even sure if I've seen the AI use his engage attack, the Storm's Eye, or if it has, I've killed him through it anyway. Like I have no idea how this guy works, and it's because like he doesn't make a difference. I don't see. Again, I don't know how it would work in offense, which is why he's going to be in the defense tier, because I've seen him on defense. He's too easy to kill. I don't really have much else to say. Low tier. Sorin is up. Oh man, Sorin is going to be like one of my top 2 emblems. I'm going to put him below Lyn just because he's DLC. Because fuck DLC. He's basically magical Lyn, right? Like he gets the bolting, which gives whatever, what is it, 3 to 8, 3 to 10 range. So it's like he gets to do that every turn he's engaged. He can attack with bolting. Completely insane. Honestly, so when I'm going to talk about Sorin, I'm pretty much going to be under the assumption that that Veil is wearing him. Anyone who paid any reasonable amount of attention to engage already pretty much knows, like, Veil Sorin is broken in so many ways in the campaign. That almost entirely carries over to OUTREALMS. So she has the massive range from bolting, the self-healing, of course, from, was it Flare, I think? And then what Veil in particular is good with is because she has a massive magical stat, and she's a dragon. She gets that special double crit rate from being engaged with Sorin. So this all combines to make her really powerful while she's attacking somebody, and really annoying to kill because of holdout plus the healing effect while she's engaged. That's just, it's like no brains, no IQ needed. Just engage with Sorin and shoot with holdout and divine plus across the map, and something dies, right? It's that easy. Top tier. He's top tier on offense and defense. Like, there's nothing else to be said. This guy, like, when I see him on defense, him and Lyn are like my top 2 targets every time. If they're on defense, I'm like, okay, how do I deal with them? Because they're the most annoying things to deal with. Next up is Camilla. I think I'll put Camilla just above Corrin as a defense emblem for the same reasons. I mean, hopefully this is clear to you guys by now, but it's basically for the same reasons as Celica and Sigurd, and also Lyn and Soren. That, like, when you have an emblem that gives your unit additional move or range, that's kind of automatically going to be defense, because the AI doesn't really, like, it doesn't really know how to, like, check enemy threat range or put a specific unit in range of, like, an enemy physical unit. No, it'll just charge the general in, even if there's a mage there. It'll just be like, oh, let's just run the general straight towards the enemy mage. Who cares? So, anything that gives additional move and range and survivability, again, this is Camilla in a nutshell, right? Her engage ability, it gives your unit flying. I often see her on cavalry. As a matter of fact, I think I've almost only seen her on cavalry. And she gives cavalry an additional +2 move. And then her engage attack has like a range of like 4 or something. Like it shoots in like a weird like checkerboard square almost. She can net some really like odd KOs sometimes on defense, and she's done it to me. She's definitely caught me off guard sometimes and killed 1 or 2 of my units with her engage attack. And when you use it with like the Yukon Visara, the S rank X, she's instantly killing a lot of people with that engage attack if the offensive player messes up their positioning. Yeah, and on offense, again, I think for the same reasons as Sigurd and Celica, I probably wouldn't really use Camilla on offense, considering you kind of got to charge your Camilla holder forward to use the engage attack. I mean, it does do a massive AoE, pretty reasonable usage when the AI generally tends to clump up on their defense units, so that you can usually nuke like 2 or 3 of them, if not more, I'd imagine. But altogether, I would definitely consider Camilla like an above average defense emblem. Chrom is next. I don't think I've ever seen Chrom on defense, on like any defense team, or if I have, he's not contributed. Actually, I'm lying. Yeah, I have seen Chrom on defense. And what he does is he spams his rally thing. I don't know why the AI is so obsessed with these kinds of things on the defense. For some reason, the AI is obsessed with this, and like they'll walk backwards and away from like the enemy team, like just to go give some random unit 5 spaces backwards, like to rally them for whatever, like +2 stats or whatever it is. And the unit that they buff isn't even going to be attacking or like anything this turn. Like that, the unit that they just rallied just like walks 5 spaces, 6 spaces forward and doesn't do anything. Other than watching Chrom do a bunch of rallies, I've never really seen him contribute on defense. Like it's just a waste. It feels like a waste. So I'm kind of just guessing that like he's probably mid-ish tier. On paper, I don't think he's better than Marth, but I might be wrong. Like I know, like you can build your own maps, and I might be overlooking this quite a bit, but I know that Chrom has that ability that says like when you're on avoid plus terrain, the enemy can't attack back. Like the enemy can't counterattack while you're attacking from like trees or whatever. I could see this being very easily taken advantage of. Like Chrom easily just like he camps inside one of those avoid tiles and just is constantly chipping at enemies, or like, you know, breaking miracle, breaking holdout for you, and at no risk for the Chrom user themselves. So I think that's got to be like at least mildly useful. He also gives you the chain attack thing. What is it called? The better half or the other half? I forget. That gives you another avenue for bypassing Miracle, at least for a unit that's already at 1 HP or really low HP. This is a guess by me, but he's probably like mid-ish tier for offense. Don't use him on your defense, please. Don't do that. Finally, we are at the last emblem here, Veronica. I think I'll put her above Hector. As a defense emblem. This also could be a better offense emblem, I'm not sure, but I've seen this on defense reasonably enough that I get the impression that players prefer to put it on defense, and probably because of the summoning thing, her engage attack, where she just summons a random unit. So it gives you an extra body for your opponent to deal with. Your opponent's attacking team has to kill. So now it's 13 to 8 instead of 12 to 8. But altogether, like, other than summoning a random unit, this is another engage ring that it's like, I don't know what it does. It doesn't, like, seem to do anything. I've seen it do, like, that weird half dance contract, I want to say, where it contracts an adjacent unit and gives them, like, an additional attack. And that combos pretty well with Soren. If you have a Soren user, like, if the AI is smart enough to combine contract and Soren to just continuously nuke units that are far away, that's really good. But since I don't have the DLC, I can't test it. And I almost always kill Soren first thing because I don't want to deal with him. So I don't know if the AI will do that. But if it does, I could see Veronica going up a little bit. Altogether, I'm not super impressed with Veronica. Again, I don't have much experience with her other than seeing her on a few defense teams. Well, there it is, the complete OUTREALMS Fire Emblem Engage tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you have the DLC. Let me know if you think the DLC emblems could be better used on, like, offense than, like, for, like, Tiki, Edelgard, Hector, and Veronica. Let me know if, like, you think they're much better on offense than defense. Thanks for sticking through this unhinged rant, and we'll catch you in the next one.